All right, so this is going to be a podcast, and with me is Max Melit. The podcast is going to be called Talking Bullshit. This is basically just me talking to random content creators I know, get their opinions about recent events, recent tournaments, or other things related to esports. And this first one's going to be about the Boston Major, since Max Melit has yet to see it. And Max Melit is a CSGO content creator. Definitely check out his YouTube channel, and he's written for various publications. Is there a specific one you're writing for now, or?
Just whoever pays me the most, Stephen. It's
Yeah,
pretty straightforward.
yeah. So highest bidder, definitely look out for this guy. All
Yeah.
right. So you were on vacation during the Boston Majors, but you did say you saw parts of it already. So I guess we'll go to the big one, which is the Cloud9 run.
Yeah.
Right, because the way I thought about Cloud9 before this tournament was they were probably a dark horse along the side with G2. I think the two favorites were certainly Faze and SK. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about
Oh
the
yeah.
run?
C9's run in particular. Oh well, obviously just like nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you look at C9, and I was like sort of keeping half an eye on them before the major, just trying to figure out like, all right, probably going to get to round of eight, probably going to have a good like solid best of three series in the quarterfinals, and then just get knocked out, or maybe make it to the semis if they get a good bracket draw. And I was like keeping an eye on my phone when I was on holidays, just on like the hotel Wi-Fi to see the bracket draw. You see G2, and you're like, oh, it's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think that G2 like clean best of three upset like blew me away so much. Like it blew me away almost more than the Phase series, because at least the Phase series like was really really closely contested. It was like, one of the best upsets of all time. But
Right.
the fact like that they just so cleanly 2-0 G2, and I was in my head it was just done. It was like, all right, is now like Bellator like having a close series against Navi was like more of a chance in my head than C9 clean 2-0ing for G2.
Yeah, and G2 themselves actually had a really good run this tournament, but like I think basically Thorne pointed out, like it's completely insubstantial, just the teams they beat. But in terms of how they looked, it was really good. And the reason I think a lot of people believed in G2 was because in the qualifier stage and then the legend stage, basically Shox went off
Yeah.
crazy, and everyone really wanted to believe that Shoxy Jesus had returned. But in fact, he had died so that Tarek Jesus could rise.
God damn, did he rise? Jesus, dude. Since when did Tarek get good at playing the game Counter-Strike Global Offensive?
Uh,
Oh my God. What an animal. Holy shit. Tarek is so good at this video game, dude. Like, it's crazy. I, it for sure, like, maybe one of like the ultimate examples of a career peak, like, just happening
mhm.
at the best point in time. Like, dude, the amount of impact he had in every single one of those playoffs best of threes was just nuts. Like,
Absolutely.
absolutely nuts. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when he was basically on Optic, right? When they made that E League major run, Naf had like the
Yeah.
crazy career peak, right? And this time
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Tarek, but I think this one's actually more sustainable than than Naf, just because
Yeah.
Tarek was the best player for Cloud9 in my opinion the last few months.
Mm.
Which is strange because he's like the in-game leader, but I think he basically put himself into a role that he was really comfortable in, and
Yeah.
he like had complete confidence that his team could back him up.
He Stewie 2K'd himself
Yeah,
in Stewie 2K's
yeah, and then
roster.
Stu TK had to like learn relearn how
Yeah. Yeah.
relearn, but it actually works out if you think about it, just because they both have very similar styles of in-game leadership in a way. It was actually I'm not sure how you think about the Cloud9 tactics or the Cloud9 like structure of the system. It feels like a combination of what was best of Optic under Stanislaw and what was best under Stewie 2K.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good way of putting it, because Optic, because Stanislaw as a leader always impresses me in that he can seemingly like call anything based on the strengths of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at a lot of optics runs and when they were good, like at E-League and stuff like that, and you see like Stanislas was really comfortable, like playing loose, like calling around, like Rush himself and Tarek, and just using the form at the time and like their ability to just like overpower and overwhelm teams in duels to win. But at the same time, like as they started fading and as he joined Liquid, like he seemed just as comfortable playing like structured mid-round calls and then executing. And so it's like Stanislaw is really good in that way, and you can see like those early sort of rush tactics and the early looseness of that optic, yeah, as you're saying, like really manifest itself in Cloud9 because they're, because I was trying to like pick why the C9 run felt so profound to me. And I think it was a mixture of like the sheer confidence that like calling style requires, where you're just like, yeah, we're just going to rush like Tarek and rush to balcony on Inferno.
Yeah.
You just fucking hold W and then just try to outfrag all of them just sitting at battles. And it's like, cool, dude, that's fucking hard to confidently call, and they do it all the time. But then they also seem just as able to like play off of executes and then transition off of defaults as well. So yeah, as you're saying, it's a really nice blend.
Yeah, and to go off the point of the decisiveness, like there's actually a critical point. I'm not actually sure how important it is in terms of their confidence, but you know the Legend stage, they basically went 0-2, right? And then they make the comeback through the Swiss system.
In the
Legend stage. And at that point, like, actually Stewie 2K was like, on social media, it's like, oh god, I fucked up. Oh god, I fucked up. Right? He had a little bit of that in him. And then basically that was like the critical point, because at some point, like when you feel like you're dead, there's nothing left to like fear in a sense.
Yeah, nothing left to lose.
Nothing left to lose, right?
Warmed up on that VP punching bag a bit, and then just
yeah, definitely VP's totally dead, but rest in peace. But basically the way I saw it was like that was like a critical moment for the team in terms of their confidence, in terms of playing loose and playing under the pressure, because at that point I'm not actually sure if they think about it that way, but it kind of feels like extra credit, like, oh god, we survived like the worst possible fate, which is like going 0-3 in group stages, and now we just make a run for it, right?
Yeah. And they did. They just like gunned it, because I always thought that like sort of loose, like more aggressive sort of style was a bit one-dimensional, because I don't think they naturally have the like latent like skill, at least before this tournament, to make like their transitioning mid-round game and their executes like work against a Faze or an SK or even like top European sides. And I think we even saw that. I think it was the Gambit series at, was it ECS or before that, where they lost to Faze in the semis.
They lost to Faze a bunch of times.
Yeah, it might have been ECS. Hold on, let me just check that. But yeah, they played Gambit in a best of 3, and it was at Oakland. That's right, Oakland. And it's like they won the best of 3, but the overpass went to overtime with Gambit winning it. And then Mirage. Yeah, okay, cool. And I just remember watching that series, and it was just like, it felt like a bit shallow and one-dimensional, that loose style. Because if you do just get like outgunned man for man, and then you can't make that mid-round like more default-centric style work, then you just lost. Like it's so hard to grind out rounds with like loose aggression and just doing those like fast balcony rushes, or even on Mirage, they had that strat where like they just pushed like Tim and Tarek down mid super fast and did that like crazy rush A split where they had like Tim rushing Cat, Tarek down to bottom of con, like Stewie 2K to Palace, and then they just like split A as fast as possible. And it's like you can't grind out a series with that unless you have the skill to like justify those loose strats, which is why I was so skeptical of Cloud9 coming in. But apparently they just do have the skill, which is nuts.
Well, they did have the skill, definitely, because if we talk about prior to this tournament, at least in my eyes, I felt like Tarek was their best player. Their second best player was probably Automatic. Rush was consistent, but obviously he forced himself into the supportive role, right? So you're not going to get that much impact from him. And so the two question marks you have to have are Stewie, who was like transitioning to a new role, and Skadoodle, who has been, you know,
obviously he was the biggest question mark.
He was like the biggest question mark, and then I know we talked about it, but like basically like Tarek went fucking crazy this tournament, but so
Yeah.
did the rest of
Hey,
Cloud
it's
Nine.
worth talking about again. Like, trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, and like
No, you're right.
Cloud Nine is actually a really funny team if you just talk about individual performances, because like obviously in like the afterglow of the tournament, I was like, oh man, that's Skadoodle. He really fucking showed up. But whenever you watched it, I was like, wait a second, like this entire team showed up like to an
Yeah.
incredibly crazy extent to the point where like 4 out of the 5 players probably could have won the MVP. Like Ely gave it to Skadoodle, HLTV gave it to Tarek. You could probably give it to Stewie 2K just for the hero play
Yeah.
on the end.
Easy. Easy.
Yeah, and then Automatic was consistent throughout the entire tournament and had big plays even in the final game, right? So it's
And
like,
was big and was big on overpass.
and was big on
In that.
overpass, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's Yeah, that's nuts. Like because Skadoodle was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like legitimately, I can't even think of a time, even like in the famous C9 summer run, where he was that dominant and dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
and just like wasn't even just opening up rounds, but just closing rounds so consistently, like with a rifle, with like really, really beautiful movement with the orb, like. And so the shit thing about that is that when you see like Skadoodle getting 2Ks and 3Ks with a rifle and being massive in these moments with AKs and then displaying like really pixel perfect, awesome movement and crazy game sense, it's like that's not the Skadoodle we know. So is that like the evolution of Skadoodle into this superstar, crazy, well-rounded, dynamic NA like phenom, or is it just like his latent skill set getting like way boosted by this like ephemeral moment of form, and then like the bout of form is why we see him able to win these duels with the AK, and is why he suddenly has this crazy consistency and like ability to dominate orb duels as well. Like I think him and Guardian in the grand finals went 8-8. They were equal
Yeah.
in all kills, and Guardian was playing really well as well. So
Yeah,
like,
I actually think Guardian was the MVP on reflection, just because like
yeah,
there were so many. Everybody was having a star performance of Cloud9, whereas like Guardian's like trucking it alone for like at times for long periods of time that series. But we'll get back to that later. But yeah, Skadoodle. The way I actually think about Skadoodle during this tournament is like prior to the tournament, right? In the last few runs with Cloud9, he was a serviceable opper, but like the
definitely.
most impact he was getting, in my opinion, was actually clutches for some reason.
Mm.
And in this iterate, like basically it was kind of this weird like supportive opera where in an execute he would like hold the angle, or maybe he might come in a trade, or he would like hold the post plant. Like those were his those were his positions. That was
Which is what he's always excelled at.
yeah, always excelled at. But
Always excelled
obviously like he wasn't like going superstar mode, but in my opinion, he was actually playing a similar style, except he went supercharged. Like
Yeah.
that's like what's really crazy about Skadoodle. And I'm not even sure how long this will last. Maybe it was just one moment, or maybe he'll fall down again. Like we saw Neo do this basically at Epicenter, right? Had an MVP like performance and then immediately fell off right after.
Yeah. Oh well, there's countless examples of that.
Yeah.
Throughout. Yeah. Because it's. I always feel like the whole stigma of Skadoodle just being a turret is like a bit overplayed to a degree, because especially like when you talk about him in the C9 roster, because it's like the last thing the C9 roster needs is like a Yugi style fucking simple style AWPer, which is just jumping around the map.
Yeah,
like
they have
taking
Stewie
really
for that.
Yeah, exactly. And they have Tarek for that as well. Like he was doing that with the secondary on Mirage. Like
Yeah.
they already have the ability to change up and do these like volatile things. Like Skadoodle doesn't need to be that player. And that's why I think like when people go, oh, he's just a turret, oh, he's just a defensive style AWPer, and say it with like a hint of like, oh, that's shit. It's like, no, that's what this roster fucking needs. Like the roles are already messed up enough.
Yeah, but I will say they did need that in the older version. With
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
they did need
Yeah,
that dynamic.
well, that was a problem. Yeah,
in the older versions, but
yeah.
So here's the question, I guess, for Cloud9, and then we could get back to the other teams. But given the fact that Skadoodle has had this amazing one-run tournament. Do you think they should change him? Because prior to this tournament, he's obviously like the player you would pick out of the 5 if you were going to make the roster changes. Obviously, I don't think Cloud9 are going to make those roster changes at this point, but would you?
Just want to mention. Oh, I don't know. Well, ever since JDM just left Liquid, didn't they?
Yeah, JDM left Liquid, and then also Naf is planning to leave Renegades. And then at this point, Nifty might be desperate.
Yeah.
Optic is about to blow up, so he can get Alu.
Yeah, and there are a lot of good options as well. But the thing is, I don't know, because it's like, how much better are all those players in Skadoodle? Like, really? Because do you really want to, like, fuck up the chemistry of Skadoodle, who's been, like, this bedrock member of Cloud9 since, like, time immemorial? And yeah, you'd have to find someone that I think is, like, brings something dramatically better than Skadoodle
as a C9. Player or as, like, a team member?
No, as like, almost both, because I think C9 look to scar quietly in a lot of big moments and in a lot of times when they're struggling.
Okay, so here's a potential choice then. What about Dennis?
Oh, oh fuck.
Because that guy's legit.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know, because he is pretty fucking insane.
Right,
man. That's crazy.
Like, just think about that. Because Dennis needs a team, and he was going to go to Mouse, but obviously that fell through. He's thinking about Nip, but if he could get to Cloud9, I think he would choose the Cloud9 over the NIP choice, assuming he'd be willing to move.
Well, that would just be like the Fnatic of 2016, but with like 4 NA players.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the most absurd roster to play against ever. Like, if they got momentum in a round...
And they would get momentum, man. They'd have Dennis, he's the pistol master.
I don't know, because they would literally just be like, just watching just like the most talented. But then it's like also C9's playstyle relies so much on like cohesion and team play. So maybe switching just a Swede, like just the cheekiest Swedish pistol god in there might mess things up a little bit. That's just crazy. You can't just whip out that question on me, Steven. It's fucking 9 a.m. in the morning. And just Dennis to C9 for Skadoodle. Jesus, dude.
Man, Get was about to make that choice to Cloud9 a long time ago. So maybe one day. All right. In that case, we're gonna assume Cloud9's gonna stick together for obvious reasons. Just want a major. This isn't Dota. You're not gonna kick a player once you win the biggest tournament of the year. So. What do you think are the realistic chances of where they place in the upcoming months? Cloud9 as a roster, because I don't think this is going to show up every time, right?
Oh yeah, no, obviously not. But the thing is, like, it is going to be the classic post-major, like, turbulent roster shuffle, post-roster shuffle time. So if they do stick together, they can definitely like remain a top 5 team in the world just by virtue of them being like a consistent, stable force in a time where people are like changing players and trying to figure out new styles and whatnot, especially with like Astralis and this whole Danish thing going on. I think, I think just by virtue of them sticking together, they're automatically going to have some decent results. Like they're going to see the top 4 finishes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I can't see them consistently beating Faze in that best of 3 series. Because I mean, you still like Faze nearly fucking won.
That's right.
And that was like C9 firing on all like as good as C9 can possibly play as a team is what we saw in that grand finals. Mm-hmm. Like, you could not, if you point to any part, any element across any scope of C9's game, it would be so unreasonable to say, they could have done that a bit better. It was just like, that was as good as you'll ever see C9, and they won against FaZe in a double OT in the 2-1. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, man. I like, for example, like a team like Navi, I'm just looking at the E-League bracket right now, like easy Navi could, if they were playing on all cylinders, I think, like if C9 play at their like above average level, and Navi play at their above average level, I think we see like a crazy best of three emerge again, like that. And then I think same with SK, G2, if they get their shit together, could easily contest them. Mouse, even like if Mouse play at an above average level and C9 plays at their standard level, it's like there's a lot of teams that I feel like could definitely contest C9, which makes it hard for me to see them like dominating this post major period.
Yeah, okay. That's the conclusion I came to, but we'll talk about the two of the coin flips, I guess. I actually think in my mind they're coin flips. Mouse and Navi. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Navi first.
Okay.
It's the juiciest one.
So, Navi is literally a coin flip. At least they were in this major. Where either they dominated or they got dominated by like whoever it was. And there was actually bits of hope here. Obviously, Simple's going ham. And then Flamey finally showed up after years after like wandering the desert or whatever.
Oh, that's the best. I love seeing Flamey do well because he's I think like when he's in form, he's like that sort of Nico level of like clinical, just making people so mad with how good he is level. Like when Flamey is in form, Navi is so much fun to watch. So just even by virtue of that, I'm already so biased to Navi doing well just because of Flamey's aiming style and how like silly dominant he can be. But yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about Navi. That's also because I wasn't like on board of the Navi bandwagon last year, and I like need to go through like the classic analyst apologist cycle where like I miss out on the boat last year, so like I'll start supporting Navi a lot and like praise Simple and like get real optimistic, and then they'll break my heart, obviously, and then I'll like start to hate them, write a bunch of pieces of content about how Simple's trapped in Navi, and then completely not support them in 2019, which another analyst will jump on, and then by 2020, that 12-month like post-breakup period with my relationship with Navi will have healed, and then the cycle will start all over again. And then perpetually I'll just be writing bits of content about Simple that will get 200 likes on Twitter.
Or you could just follow the French roster scene. Sounds about the same.
No, dude. I won't be alive by 2020 if I follow French CS that closely. I'll just kill myself.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so you believe in this Navi team. You believe they will get it together.
Well, I think, it's like... And I think there's some legitimately good reasons to be optimistic. And I did actually write a piece of content on this just because I was looking at like Simple's like career overall. And if you look at 2017, then the kernel of the idea for the article came like 2017 for Simple was like the first major backward step of his career. Because it's always been like, oh, what's he going to do next? Oh, wow, this guy's really good. He's getting a lot of potential. Okay, now he's in Liquid. He's like playing in majors and dominating. And it's like, oh, now he's joining Navi. He's finally like in this system. And it's like he won ES1 New York at the end of 2016, like all this potential. And then it's always been about like structuring that potential and then waiting to see if Simple can like realize it. But then 2017, he sort of had some of the tools, but then didn't do that. And so that was like the first major backward step of his career. And I'm like, but that's only from the macro perspective of results. Like what was Simple actually like in game and what's changing from the start of 2017 to the end of 2017. I think the biggest thing is that throughout Simple's career, I think a lot of his teammates and leaders look at his skill set, look at how naturally aggressive and dominant he is in terms of like making decisions and how like he wants to make plays. And they see that and think like, all right, this guy's going to open up rounds for us.
Okay.
But in this Navi, but I don't know if that's like the best way to use Simple, because I think Simple's like such a challenging player to use in that he's so good at the game. Like his philosophy and how he wants to play might not actually be best or the most effective for how he can be used within a team. And we saw like, especially in the early days with like Flipside and Hellraisers and like before he joined Liquid, he was definitely like that guy that was trying to open up rounds, like force buying Deagles, buying AKs, like, and really trying to get the entries. But in this Navi roster, like Zeus has him at the back of the pack and he's like closing out rounds more. It feels like, and I don't have like the stats to really, like, I don't have the stats on hand, but it definitely feels like from the eye test that he's a lot more reserved with the AWP. And when he does get aggressive, it feels like it's more just not like overpowering people with raw skill, but he's just like, no, I am better than you by like 40% in this spot if I get there first. And I can get there first and win that duel because I'm simple. And it feels like he just like his skills, like it's hard to explain, but it feels like his talent allows him to just like slightly edge out other really good players rather than just like completely like flick onto them. And so yeah, it feels like Simple's dominating in a different way in this Navi, and that lends itself to more consistency, which is why I'm sort of more hopeful for it. And also because Zeus is just straight fucking feeding him resources, just dropping him AKs every single round, and Navi just force buy around him all the time. So I think at worst, Simple like doesn't perform this year, and everyone sort of gets off the Simple bandwagon, and we sort of all agree that maybe he's like really, really good and really, really talented, but just can't fit within a team structure, or finally that he gets all these resources invested to him in a well-structured way and Navi dominate.
All right. Well, here's an alternative.
Yeah.
Here's an alternative. Instead of a structure, why not go this freestyle route? And there is a leader in CIS who does it. It's Angel. What do you think of? Because he's the only answer left if this Navi doesn't work, right?
Yeah. Well, no, you tell me your thoughts first because I've been talking for a while. What do you think?
About Simple or about Navi?
About Simple.
Simple is I actually disagree a bit. I think he should be going fucking crazy all the time. That's just my opinion, just because I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
Totally fair. Yeah.
But when we're talking about him being taken, like you set it up nicely when you said like he won ESL New York and he Guardian, and it was like it felt like it was going to be the time finally for the rise of Simple to battle out against like SK and Coldzera or eventually Nico and Faze, but it didn't work out that way because Valve muted Starix, and then you go down this like hellhole. And during this time of this hellhole, like Simple was actually just being put in Zeus's roles and positions.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me think Starix is a really stubborn sort of in-game leader and didn't actually want to cater to Simple in particular way, but rather he's like, oh, you're better than Zeus. If I could get you to do what Zeus did, we are going to be unstoppable, which could have worked if he wasn't muted. But eventually you go to the Seized era, and there's this like weird thing that like consistently kept happening when I was trying to figure out what was going on with this Navi, where he's basically being put in these dead positions. And what I mean by dead positions is like he will be stuck in a place where there's like a 180-degree angle, and he's just by himself. And like that's kind of like how the setup works, and he has to kill like 2 people by himself. And he consistently was able to do it, and then Navi would lose anyway.
Yeah, which is always the storyline of Navi.
Yeah, or he wouldn't even be looking at like the right angle. Like, there's this stupid clip. It was like overpass. He's looking towards like the toilets, and then he flicks over to long and kills the guy instantly. And like, what the hell is this? You're not actually an opper. You're just super fast, right? But he Simple, in my view, has a lot of skill, and I think he has such a good mind for aggression that I would rather use him in that particular sense. But we'll see how Zeus eventually decides to use him, because there are still questions about this team. Like, for instance, Electronic has been pretty inconsistent since joining this team, even though the idea was like Electronic had played under Blade, and Blade is an even more structured in-game leader than Zeus. So you would think that'd be a possible match, but it hasn't been the case. And then Edward, Edward fell off the rock, right? All right.
Well, yeah, there's a key distinction between Electronic and Flipside, and Electronic and Navi.
Right.
Because in Flipside, he was like structured as the star. Because it undoubtedly, Electronic was by far and away the best player on Flipside.
Yeah.
Like at the time, and so he was like the one who Blade was setting up, putting in the key fragging positions. Whereas in Navi, it feels like he's now more a support player, and feels like he's sort of looking to open up sites with Zeus almost on T side, and he's like sort of pressuring more at the front of the pack in a similar way to Flipside, but not in that star way.
Where they set him up a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like he's as set up as much, but he still impressed me a lot in Navi, because I thought that'd be a much slower transition time for him to get into the team and play at that super high level of CS. But, like definitely a super serviceable player and obviously not as dominant as his flip side. But I can't tell yet whether that's because he naturally, his like talent isn't at that high level or because Navi just aren't structuring him in that same way. But sorry, I cut you off. I just wanted to.
All right, there's one last piece in Navi we haven't talked about. It's Edward.
Yeah.
Edward's been pretty bad since he's actually been pretty good. All right, let me rephrase that. He's been pretty good for most of 2017 up until they got Zeus and Electronic, and then he fell off.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
But at this major, he actually had some brief like resurrection of form a bit. But is it enough for you to think keep him or don't?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because if you look at Navi right now, very very clearly they want Simple as the undoubtedly untouched, godly level superstar player who's going to carry them, and then Flamey, who's like secondary AWPing now and is given like a lot more resources than he's been in the past, is like that going to be that secondary star.
Yeah.
Where if Simple's not playing in God mode, then Flamey's going to start carrying them, which he has been, and which has been really impressive. And so in theory now, Electronic / Edward's going to be our third star. But that third star role, especially when you do have a player that like has impressed me as much as Electronic has, I feel like Edward is by far and away the most replaceable player on this roster. And I think especially with how we've seen Vega and Quantum start playing, like if some CIS like of that young talent starts like continuing to like get qualifications into big lands and starts and by the way, I haven't watched any of the Quantum Belfort Vega games, so I don't know. Like
they're pretty average, to be honest.
Right. Oh, I'm just looking at the results, but like even still, like the point is that the CIS region definitely feels like it's getting more exposure, and I feel like if the sort of farm teams continue to do well and some of those like flip side continues to fall off and players get more exposure under a system like Blade, I feel like Edward is by far the most replaceable player on this roster.
Okay. All right. How long would you give this team to get it together? Because they've been together for a few months now. Because there has to be a time limit, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, yeah, it's tough because I would like to see them obviously expand their map pool beyond Banana on Inferno.
It's a great place, Banana on Inferno.
Yeah, no, hey, when they're there, they're killing the game. But I would love to see them expand the map pool beyond that, and that obviously takes time. But yeah, you can't spend so much time with already pretty tried and tested players. And it's not like Electronics dramatically shaking things up. It's the Zeus system that's shaking things up and changing things up. So it's like, unless you're replacing the system, I feel like you can replace the parts in it definitely quicker than you did in the old Navi.
Right.
So yeah, I would maybe give it until like at latest the middle of the year, unless they're at the latest, before you start looking at like someone like Edward and being like, all right, who's going to be the guy that's replacing him,
All right. Next team I want to talk about is Mouse, or actually a specific player on Mouse. The one player I think you might say is even more wild than Simple is Oscar. And Oscar has actually gotten more wild as time has gone on in this Mouse team.
Which is awesome.
Like
fucking the best.
Usually it's like the reverse. You like join a team and you're like, oh, my FBL days are over. Actually, he has increased closer to the FBL days, running up ladders with ops, running in first with the op, doing all this crazy shit. And the reason I'm bringing up Mouse is because they are actually the most dynamite team in terms of the ceiling, but also like one of the worst teams in terms of floor.
Well, I'm gonna put this question to you. Is how would you characterize, because this is a question that I've been like sort of toying with recently, just because I never really watch like I never sit down to watch Mouse VODs,
Yeah.
but seemingly just like a lot of the teams that I wanna analyze play against Mouse and have like decent enough games against Mouse. So I think by virtue I've like got a lot of like secondhand opinions about them by like analyzing how they play against other teams. And so yeah, I'm struggling with this question, but how would you characterize Mouse's play style and their biggest strengths?
Mouse is a less coordinated Cloud9 in a sense. And what I mean by that is they need, well, in a sense, in that they need the first two guys to break open sites on the T side. And usually that's going to be, for some reason, Oscar with his op. And Chris J can do it sometimes, but obviously he's like one of the most inconsistent pieces on this team. And if they don't do it, then they have to hope they create enough space for Sunny to open it up. And then you have Ropes who can, or Rops, I'm not sure how to pronounce
it. Yeah. Let's stick with Ropes.
Rops. Okay, so basically, the way I see him is like he's basically being put on as a wing player in a sense. Like in a 4-1, he's the one, and then he gets almost autonomous decision as to whether he goes in or whether he goes and backs up the team. So that's kind of how I see their T sides, and because it works like that, they have a few problems. Basically, like I think their coach is pretty good in the sense like he's basically set up this basic structure for them to follow and these basic guidelines. But when shit gets tough on the T side, they run out of ideas pretty quickly if they are not firing off.
Well, that was one of the group stage games. Did you see the Astralis Mouse game?
Yeah.
On Cash?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that T side, I was like, because that's exactly what you're saying, is like when they're behind, I definitely agree, because you can literally see like just on the map how the players move. It's like young stars do not move that way at all. That is so much the coach's structure, and just like them sitting down and being like, this is how we're going to set up each round. You know what I mean? Like they very, very clearly have a plan. And in that Astralis game on Cash, like they just were able to beat Astralis on an individual level consistently. And the T plan was awesome. Like it really, really impressed me with how the like sort of, it wasn't just round to round, but like from round one till the end of the half, there was like a consistent plan with how they wanted to toy with Astralis and like mess with rotations and fakes, and played it really well. And so I definitely agree with that, in that I feel like if Mouse do get behind, that more like default centric, let's send Sunny and Chris J out and hope they find double entries each.
Yeah, please.
Type of style. Yeah, please, God. Or then, like, if that doesn't work, then hopefully Robs can clutch out around if he hits his timing, or Oscar can do some nutty shit. And also, I think Sticko is low-key, like, a really, really valuable third entry player. Yeah. He sort of feels like that rush type player for this team. Like where he's just going to be really, really consistent and quick with how he trades, and will carry the bomb, get it down, and play post plants and bait for someone like Oscar or Rops in late round situations. So yeah, I think Sticker is like quietly undersold how consistently good he is in this roster. But yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like when they get behind, they struggle to quickly adjust on the fly, because when you do have that like set plan for, all right, on Cash, we're going to fake B a lot, then hit A after that, and then throughout the round we're going to consistently like throw these fakes to draw rotates and delay. Like when you have set templates for halves, when things start going awry and you're forced to adjust that template quickly, yeah, you can definitely see how that would cause them some issues.
Yeah. All right, so basically the way I think about this Mouse team is they are, in a sense, one of the most dangerous upset teams, because obviously this style is so skill based, and they have 3 very good stars in Oscar, Sunny, and Ropes. And they also play a bunch of maps, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But in order to get to the next level, they probably need a change. Do you think that's the case, or do you think like this team still has a bit more to show?
Well, the thing is, when you do have the style they have, it feels like it's pretty like interchangeable in a lot of ways. Like I can definitely like I don't think like, for example, like someone like Chris J is the fucking glue holding this team together. Like I feel like you could easily slot in, pick like an entry of your choice, especially with XMS leaving Navi, Envious.
Yeah.
Like,
but
slot
does he speak English?
Yeah, God, yeah, dude.
Okay.
XMS's English is top notch. Yeah, slot him into. You can slot pretty much anyone except for Sonny and Oscar, and to a degree Robs. But I think, I feel like you have to keep Robs just because he's so young and talented. So
he has a lot more potential, right?
Yeah, a lot more potential than most other people. But I definitely feel like out of those three, it's pretty interchangeable with the roster change. So yeah, I'm not against one, but at the same time, it's like, what are the expectations for this Mouse roster? You know, like, do we want them to win tournaments? Because I feel like it's pretty impressive just by what they're doing on paper. I mean, already.
I think they've already done pretty well, but obviously once you get to a point, you have to get to the next level, right? And that's kind of like the point of the whole competition thing. But here's the question then. Obviously, you haven't really decided which way or the other, but do you stack this lineup with more skill, or do you try to get a leader?
Oh, that's a tough one. Because then if you get a leader, then it will change up the system they have. And so you might, because then that's the classic, like, do you just try to make incremental increases on what's already working, or the dramatic change up that can, like, make it way better or way worse? Well, who would you suggest to lead it? Like something like Angel? Or
Angel's obviously the big one, but obviously he's like got a crazy ass contract. He's not getting out of there soon.
Trapped in that Eastern European jail, baby. Let's go. I'd probably say at least for the next few months, because I feel like you can definitely still develop upon that template and upon that default style, and you can make people better in the mid round as time goes on. I feel like for the next few months, maybe you just look to get more talented players and see where that leads you. But then over longer stretches of time, look to make those more dramatic changes that will shake things up, and hopefully from the shake up, you can reform into something significantly better.
Yeah. Which is too bad, I guess. They were thinking about the Dennis.
Yeah.
Saw that?
Mouse probably don't have deep enough pockets to do that.
Yeah, but I think every team that's looking for a replacement should consider Dennis. He's pretty good. Guy.
Pretty fucking good, yeah. Right. Mouse would actually benefit a lot from Dennis, because who would they replace? Chris J?
I think the person they were going to replace was Sticko, which didn't make much sense to me, but I'd say Chris J would be the one. But obviously,
because Dennis can AWP as well, can't he?
Yeah.
But gotcha.
Yeah. There's like a few problems with Dennis going in, but I think the upside would have been crazy.
Crazy big. Mouse would be dangerous with fucking Dennis in that roster, dude. That'd be nuts. Yeah.
Anyway, the rumor now is Dennis to Nip. Who would you kick out for Dennis?
Oh, god damn. I didn't know that was a rumor. I don't keep up on today on Twitter enough. Oh my gosh. Dennis to Nip. Well, the first name that jumps to my mind is Exist, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't live there forever, man.
No, you can't. So, and it's because the problem is you can't kick Rez, because his upside is just too big and he has too much potential, and he's like shown brief glimpses of just too much for him to just be gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
Get Right and Forest are literal royalty. They will never leave until they choose to. And then, so your only two choices are Draken and Exist.
Yeah, and I mean, like the Drake and Dennis move isn't awful either. Like, that's not out of the question, I don't think. Because I mean, like, Draken's good, but
he's missing key parts of his game, a lot of them.
Yeah, like he has some pretty significant holes in his game, and the upside, like relative to the upside of Dennis, like. I mean, Dennis, I think, brings a lot more to the team overall, actually.
Yeah.
But at the same time, him for Exist might be the better move. But Exist is sort of in that royalty category.
He's close to it. I'm not sure he's true royalty. We'll see.
Nah, he's like the guy at the very end of that like long table where where like Forrest and Get Right just eating like turkey legs with like their hands.
And there's like an NPC next to him where Fiberg used to be.
Has like a fallen crown on it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So there's I guess we missed the big one. What do you think about Faze in this tournament in the major?
Yeah, so I have a interesting theory, because the big thing that people will talk about is like that Nico was bad in the grand final, right? And that's the at least what I've seen. Would you agree? Like that's the sort of
That's like the big talking point. Is
yeah.
Nico choked, but there's like
Yeah, we'll see.
go
I
ahead.
have a key theory on Nico, and that is your boy Duncan Shields was like asking me as part of the research saying like why does Nico perform worse against SK? And so I watched like a bunch of games of Nico playing like performing either really well, really poorly, or just average against SK. And it seems like the biggest detriment to Nico's performances is when teams like can deny him space and successfully work pressure on him. Because Nico is one of the players that like can just manifest like crazy impact out of nothing. And when you give him space, you give him that like split second to work those crazy amounts of impact. But where SK was so good is like because of how cohesive they are and because of how they like to play their T sides, where they're constantly pushing, looking for those forward aggressive defaults and looking to constrict teams just with their like crazy amount of individual skill and how they leverage it. Like Nico was never given a chance to like flick onto the second kill because the trade was always there, or he was never given a chance to like even find the opening kill because the double peak was always there, or the retarded timing from Phelps was always there. And it's like he was always constricted. And so Nico really had to elevate his game whenever he played SK. Like he couldn't beat them just by playing at an average level. Like he had to beat them on aim as well. And when I was watching the C9 series, I saw a lot of the same thing. Because like C9's T-side style is very similar, but again, obviously very different, but like has some similarities to SK's T-side and how they like play fast and like
They deny
play
space.
those like deny space really well. And I saw like a Nico put under pressure a lot, and especially when C9 have elevated their overall game to this like ungodly high level. It's like unless you're like peak Nico, you're not dominating in that game just by virtue of how he creates impact. So I think it's pretty unfair to say like that Nico performed really poorly. I think he performed poorly in that he was the superstar of Faze and didn't have a peak Nico performance.
Yeah.
But I don't think he played bad.
You don't think he played bad, but he was. But in that case, do you think he was like one of the issues for FaZe losing then?
Yeah, like he was an issue in as far as like he didn't carry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because his job is to carry, right?
Yeah, his job is to carry. Yeah, but like I don't know. I feel like it's because it's the major grand final. I can understand. It's like all right, you're the superstar. You say you're the best player in the world. Now it's the time to prove that. But at the same time, it's like C9. All five of them are playing at like a FaZe individual level.
Right.
You know, so. Yeah, I think it's more about like how well Cloud9 stepped up rather than like Nico stepping down. I feel like FaZe just played their game at a level you'd expect from the second best team in the world, except C9 played like the best team in the world in that moment.
Right. I think it's actually a combination of the two. There are moments, obviously, in Nico's game where he was actually really hesitant, even though he didn't have to be. Yeah. There's also moments where like he did like really crazy moves, and I remember like basically on the last game, like Inferno Kerrigan had taken B control. I think he just jumped through a smoke at A and then died or something. It's like, what is this? So that's actually kind of like if you ever saw The Matrix. Basically, it's like nobody ever makes the first jump. That was like the first jump for Nico, and then he died when making that jump. Obviously, this analogy doesn't work because like all 5 of Cloud9 players all made the jump the first time. But normally you don't make that first jump.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. I can't. I don't know enough about Matrix to continue on your analogy. So I'm just
yeah. But basically, he didn't make the first jump because when you make it to the finals of your first like world title, the pressure does get to you, especially. Like I said earlier, like Cloud9, at some point they stopped feeling the pressure, and FaZe obviously had that idea in their heads that rightfully so that they were going to win this tournament because this was the best circumstances in order to win a tournament.
100%.
Right. So, given actually, did you think there were any other issues in the FaZe like run? It's particularly the finals.
I think Carrigan. individually had some weak moments, but at the same time,
That's kind of
like
expected.
yeah, it's kind of expected, and he also, it's like that classic thing where it's like he had weak moments, but then it's made up for by like the couple of big moments he did have, like denying Stewie 2K's ace and things like that. So, and for an IGL, it's like whatever, especially when C9 are playing so well. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty hard to like dissect phases, faultings in a series that crazy.
Yeah, because
No.
there's a lot of crazy shit that goes down, especially in
Yeah,
the
a
third
lot
game,
of crazy shit.
but
Yeah,
even like in
well,
the
yeah.
first game too, right?
Well, yeah, well, and that was one of the things that blew me away the most was the fact that C9 took Faze to 14 rounds on Mirage. Like that does not happen a lot at all.
Yeah.
Like yeah, Faze so good at Mirage, like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And so for C9 just to take them to 14 rounds at all is like a massive achievement. And I feel like they'll get overlooked because Faze won it, but yeah, that was a really, really crazy game as well in a lot of ways.
Basically, if Olaf and Guardian don't go fucking ham, Cloud9 would probably win this 2-0.
Yeah, true, but at the same time, like
Right.
that's what this Phase roster is designed to do.
Designed to do.
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure about Olaf being going ham all the time. That's less in the design, but definitely Guardian.
Well, no, like the design being like you have 5 of the best players.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
four of
yeah,
the best
four
players in
or
the world.
five, right? And
Two have to sort of go off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So the question is, losing the major, do you think FaZe will make a change?
No.
Because it's not just losing the major here. We're talking about we're going to a tournament circuit where SK gets bolts back.
Yeah, which is scary. Which is so scary because that's just like bolts is just like activating Cold Zero, which is oh no.
It's activating everybody, man. He
Yeah,
got Inferno back for he might get Inferno back for SK.
Which that's the real resurrection from the dead right there. That's the real Jesus coming back. I don't know. Well, who would you replace on FaZe then?
Yeah, that's actually the problem. Like I was looking at this, like you can't replace the leader because there are no comparable in-game leaders that can deal with.
No, and Carrigan's so fucking good. Like as a caller, yeah.
Even though he did have moments of choke in the finals or moments of misreads, I guess. When you're talking about like his inability to figure out that Cloud9 was basically saving utility to the end, and then not calling for like a risky map control take, top mid or banana or something. But he's basically somebody you have to ride or die with for this Faze Clan if you're running this multi-international like
100%,
right?
Yeah.
And then
like what the point with that is like which other IGL in the world could make that like as star-studded a roster work that well?
Yeah,
like that's a tough task that he makes, I think, look real easy.
Yeah, that's like an underrated aspect of like Kerrigan's leadership. Because everybody assumes he could do. Everybody assumes everybody can do it with all-star teams, but look at G2, it's not going so good.
Yeah.
And then you also have Nico. Like, no, you're not giving him up. He's like gonna be one of the greatest of all time, maybe even the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
You got Rain,
arguably
like one of the best players of the world in the last like few months. Like, you're not
maybe
him. Maybe
the best
T-side
right? Player. Yeah, maybe the best T-side player in the world.
Maybe the best T-side, because basically like Fur fell down, Conflict fell down, and then Rain went up. Then you have Olaf Meister. Are you really get rid of Olaf Meister when he played like one of the best like tournaments at E-League?
No,
doesn't seem likely.
It doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't.
Yeah, then Guardian was the best player, at least one of the MVPs of this E-League. So it's like, you don't really have an answer of who to kick. But at the same time, you're losing to SK all the time.
Yeah, which is a big problem, because it's like FaZe don't have, at least in the series, like I don't think I watched all the series, but it's like they don't really have like a clean solution for dealing with SK style at all. But the obvious thing with that is like, who do you bring in that will like have that solution?
I did have one answer, but obviously I don't think it's gonna work out. I think you take out Olaf Meister, you bring in Zipnix.
Not bad.
right?
Not bad
Because the
at all.
Danish shuffle is
Yeah.
breaking down. So I think maybe you could have done that, but
And Zipnix has been, I think, playing off his tits recently.
yeah. And then
I think he's been on point.
the reason you're bringing in Zipnix, obviously, he's a great team player. He's going to bring that
Yeah.
natural structured style. But on top of that, basically, when you look at the SK versus Faze matchup, SK are basically winning in the late rounds in the 3v3s, and famously, that's Zipnik's little playground. That's like how he's the guy who's shutting down Cold Zero in a way.
And he can take a lot of Olaf Meister's spots.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's not bad at all. But then do you give the secondary AWP to Nico?
Yeah.
Or Carrigan? Yeah.
Either one works, right?
Yeah. No, not a bad solution. Not a bad solution at all. But I doubt we'll see.
Yeah, I doubt we'll see it because
Zipnix
obviously
leave
it's completely unfair,
code.
man. Olaf Meister was playing like a god.
Yeah. That was a vintage Olaf Meister performance in Boston, which impressed me a lot.
Yeah, Olaf Meister and Crims returning
Yeah.
now that the duo has split up.
Yeah, no, very, very true, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So there's in fact because basically we finished talking about some of the major points I want to go through about the major, but there's also the implications of what happened to the major going forward. So, for instance, Team Liquid is going to kick out JDM for NAF, if you didn't see that.
But, yeah, I just saw that today.
Yeah, but the real question you have to ask is, do you have Nitro give up leading and give it to Steel? Because that's the question. Because Nitro had an all-time good performance for him at that tournament.
Yeah. I didn't see any of Liquid's games, but I saw the stat lines.
Stat lines are actually a bit underrating what he did at
times.
Really? Like, he actually went fucking ham.
Yeah. Well, see, the leadership of Liquid's interesting because it feels like Zeus is such a heavy hand in how they play that the leader doesn't feel like the IGL defines the team style as much. It like just sort of guides them in the mid round and makes those adjustments when Zeus can't call the timeout. And so, yeah, it might almost be worthwhile if Nitro is going that hard out when he doesn't have to think about calling to give the responsibility to Steel. Because, I mean, what's Steel doing as the non-IGL that's like so much better than what Nitro can do if he's going that ham?
Yeah. There's also the point where like Steel did at times lead the Immortals team, and
yeah, for sure,
he could definitely bring in some of those scrimmy strats those Immortal guys did, and that'd definitely be like a change up for anybody who was playing against Liquid. So
well, here's a little interesting research point. When I did my piece on King, I watched a bunch of King's like domestic Brazilian games, and he was on G3X with Steel there, and Steel was actually the hard entry for that, and there's like was pretty impressive actually. Like I not impressive like in as far as like his firing style or like filthy first bullet aim, but in terms of like how committed he was and how he was able to bait for his team. And so why not just make Steel like the Nitro entry, where he was just doing essentially what Nitro was doing as the RGL, which was like baiting for people and like occasionally having a decent game which he can open up around, and then just calling from the front. Like he could literally 1-for-1 do what Nitro is doing, but then just activate the fuck out of Nitro.
Yeah, that could work. Like I said, Nitro's performance at the E-League Major actually brought up more questions for Liquid in typical Liquid fashion.
Yeah.
There's always questions about that roster of where to put players.
And so how much of NAF have you watched?
I've watched a decent amount of him on Renegades.
All right, well, break him down to me because I've not watched a lot of Renegades at all.
Basically, he's I'd probably put him as the star player of the team. They set him up.
Oh, well, yeah.
They set him up. He obviously has really good stat lines, but he's generally like when you think about like a 3-2 split, he's generally the second guy in the second part of the split.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Right, and then he's consistently trading. He's consistently like making generally smart decisions, and he's and in a way he's basically like, if you put him into Liquid, he'll be filling the back line. I guess that's my assumption, because he'll probably be playing in that kind of role, and I assume somebody like Steel or Nitro or maybe even Elise or like entry for him in a sense.
Yeah. Which is sort of what you want for your star players, obviously. So, like, for example, for in a Mirage, if there's 3 pushing main, 2 pushing Palace, he's the second guy out of Palace.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy he would be, and obviously as a obviously like he's actually shown a lot of skill within Renegades, but the Renegades team doesn't necessarily work the same way as the Team Liquid team does.
No, obviously not. Yeah.
Right. So, at least on paper, you're basically taking out from JDM. You're taking out like his inconsistency, but he was pretty good on the CT sides in terms of opping. Even though strangely, I think the stats say he got more kills on the T side. I think.
Really?
Yeah,
that's crazy. Because I always like it.
Yeah, like the impact is on the CT side, I think, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, that's kind of like the problem with JDM's. Like that was like one of the problems, but at the same time, if you take him out and you put Naf in, you're gonna be losing that CT side op.
Yeah.
And I don't see a legitimate replacement for him in that sense. And obviously, you don't need an op to run a team as long as like somebody can pick it up every once in a while. But do you think losing that and gaining Naf is worth it?
Well, the question obviously with that is like, so let's hypothetically say Naf comes in, Liquid are willing to change up the roles, and Nitro gives the leadership to Steel.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have like Nitro, Liege, Twist, and Naf, like all playing at like an average to an above average level, like dude, that is one of the strongest fucking rifling cores. That is a dangerous rifling core. Like Liege and Twist alone, we saw what they could do with Liquid, but then you like mix in activated Nitro and like Naf as your third star. Like, dude, that is deadly, because then it's like you don't even need, like, someone like Twists isn't even pressured to be having big performances each game then, but he easily can. Like, I can 100% see, like, no ult necessarily required on CC side except for, maybe, like, Nitro occasionally picking it up or some shit like that, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, it's definitely... Team Liquid's always that team that makes that roster you think, maybe this time, and then...
Maybe this time.
It's always maybe this time, and just when you're about to give up, they pull you back in.
Yeah.
That's all right, and then the final piece is going to be, because the first shot has already been fired, the Danish Shuffle. KRB has gone full WWE. He has tore off that Astralis shirt, and underneath it all was like an MSL shirt the entire time. MSL was my more true leader. I have returned MSL, and now MSL himself is like, I am no longer the second best Danish team. I am the best Danish team, and I will farm your players. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened in the conference room. Actually, it was a dramatic moment.
That's how I would have scripted it, man. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Taking some fucking narrative liberty in the next couple of bits of content.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Well, see, the first question is, who's Astralis picking up?
None. Cajun.
Is that really what's happening?
Yeah.
Is Astralis picking up Cajun?
Well, basically, they got blindsided by this, so they had to like pick it up in a hurry.
Oh,
because all right, let me break down. Basically, like 2 hours before the entire press conference happened, KRB like told them, or somebody from North told them, so they didn't know this was happening until 2 hours before, and then that's when they started scrambling because they thought they were going to stick as a 5-man.
Yeah. Okay. Man, okay, because I was talking to Sam Delorme before this about like who Astralis could pick up, and we're both like, Magisk is probably the best
choice.
The best choice, because it's like the other ones you have is like Pimp, who's like low key, could easily be in there. Dennis is definitely like
an obvious choice.
Yeah, an obvious choice. And then you've got like people. Like apparently Heroic isn't gonna easily give up any players because of the way the contracts work and how they like sort of don't want to just straight up get farmed.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, you've got like your Tenskis and like Nikos of the world and shit like that. But they're not obvious choices. So I think the big things is like Pimp, Magisk, Dennis.
You missed
like,
one.
Really?
But
who?
Config, he's been benched.
Oh, Config. Oh, right. But I thought he wasn't coming back for personal reasons or some shit.
I'm pretty sure he was benched. I'm pretty sure he was benched because he was a bit too crazy at some point.
Oh, okay. All right.
Actually, I don't know. It's hard, but basically, I don't believe in it. I don't believe anything a Danish man says once a player is benched.
Yeah, no, that's extremely fair. So then I think, and so the thing we'll talk about. So if you get Config into the team, you basically just have the Astralis of last year, but with like a player with maybe a higher skill ceiling and a slight attitude problem. And then it's like, do you really just want to try and one-to-one fill Kyobi? I don't really think you do as Astralis. I think as Astralis, you start to look to change things up. You start to look for that like thing that's going to reactivate your team. And then Magisk and Pimp are really hard sub-ins actually for Astralis. Because when I think of Magisk, you think of like just the CT dominant site player, like a really proficient late round decision maker who can close out rounds with no thought at all, but it's actually really, really impressive calculated plays. And so if you have that, then it's like, who's going to be aggressive for you on like the roles get really weird then, because then
basically you're shifting back to old Dupree as entry,
right? Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, all right, well then do you want to keep Dupree on the ult? Now it's either Device or Zitnix who has to get aggressive on CT side, which is weird. And so like actually probably what the best move is for Astralis is to pick up a Yugi, because then you get something that Astralis hasn't ever had, which is like all that core has ever had, which is a really dynamic, volatile young AWPer that like their system can mold, you know. And then you get Device back on the rifle, get him secondary AWPing, and he doesn't have to get aggressive on CT side. He can keep playing the spots and positions he is, but have this crazy young gun like beside him who can open up rounds. So I personally think Yugi would be maybe what Astralis needs the most. Dennis is obviously.
Obviously, if you can get Dennis, you should get Dennis, but he doesn't speak Danish.
Yeah, which. But again, it's like the upside for Dennis is pretty fucking high.
Yeah.
And yeah, Config, you'll probably just get more of the same. Pimp would be interesting, I think, for sure, but it's sort of the same problem with Magisk, which is like in terms of it messes up the roles a fair bit. Yeah. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
I agree in the sense like Yugi might have been a better answer than Cajun. Like I'm not very much sold on Cajun. Obviously, he's been like forced into an opera role, but I don't know if like they can resurrect him as the hybrid like rifler he once was. Like I don't see it.
Neither do I.
So it's hard for me to believe in that. If I could, it depends how rich and how willing they are. Obviously, I'd actually buy Config, and the reason I buy Config is because you don't actually put him in the entry role, is my opinion, or secondary after Glaive. You put him. You actually make him the lurker.
Not bad. And so then who's your entries now?
Glaive and Dupree, or Zitnix and Dupree, or something like that.
Zitnix isn't like he's been getting more aggressive, I think, on T sides for sure. So that's definitely not out of the question.
Yeah, so that's how I would have structured it. Actually, that's how I would structure North. I don't know why they bench Config, but there you go.
Yeah. And then it's obviously on the other side of the coin, looking at North's roster. Oh baby, let's go, champ! I'm excited.
All right, so basically, we thought we were getting Gade as our significant roster announcement. It was actually Kirby, so Kirby has returned. MSL is here. They have bench Config. AZ is somehow still immortal, and then Mertz. They got Mertz finally through. I don't even know why it took so long because he was on their academy team the entire time. That one makes no sense. And of course, Valde.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm keen. I'm really excited to see what this North roster can do. It's like ride or die time for MSL, isn't it? Like if you can't make this shit work, then it's like, all right, man, what are we doing here? Let's bring Fetish back into the... No,
hell no.
No. I think, this roster, I don't know. But it's the same thing. It's like the same thing as Navi. It's like just the cycle of an analyst turning into just an apologist for potential. Because I'm like super optimistic again about North.
Again, I'd be super optimistic if they had done the shift of Valde to AZ's roles and then bring in Config as this hyper aggressive lurker and then put KRB in his old role where Config used to be. Like I think that's kind of crazy.
The thing
right?
is Config just benched and then because like if Config's just benched, it's still part of North.
Yeah, he's just as far as we know, he's just benched. So maybe they're literally thinking he can cool down for a bit. Once we finally find the soul jar of AZ and kill it, we can bring him back in or something.
Yeah, like MSL just comes back one day just all wet. It's like, where have you been? Dude, I've been swimming fucking trying to find this jar for the last 3 weeks, dude. It was so hard. But yeah, AZ needs to die, for sure.
Yeah, like AZ definitely... I can't prove it, but I think he definitely... he got the secret formula from Dennis and Speedy of how to stay in a roster forever.
Yeah, dude, they like the Illuminati behind CSGO, because it's actually, you know, everyone says like there's that like small group, not everyone, but there's that small group where they like all suspect pros are cheating, and it's just like a massive conspiracy. The bigger conspiracy is how like players like AZ fucking stay in North, dude, because I can only imagine the amount of money he's receiving as well to do what he's doing in this roster. Yeah,
it's like it's not even like he's that terrible a player. He's pretty bad, but not that terrible. It's like, come on, man. There's so many better player placements. I was like, that's like my problem with it. There's so many better replacements.
Well, he's not a bad player,
but
relative to what North need, though.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah,
definitely true there. But yeah, I definitely would have gone the Config Valde route. Config Valde KRB route.
Well, so wait. Oh, okay. So you would not get Mertz?
I would get Mertz. I would kick out AZ. But obviously, like AZ's immortal. Yeah. Because I actually think Valde definitely has the intelligence and the ability to play a sportive end, but I actually don't know if he wants to. That's like the only question I have. Because I get the feel like he's very smart and all that, but I get the feeling he'd rather be a star player than a supportive end player right now.
Can't really be a star player in this North team though.
Yeah,
at least as Valde is right now.
Yeah, at least as Valde is right now, right? But like, it's even worse if he moved to AZ's roles.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for Mertz to come in.
Yeah,
I think his opening's going to be a big asset to.
I think you have to try it because if you get that,
for sure.
You have to try it because you need, or I don't know if you need, but you may as well because how many ops are there in Denmark? Not that many.
So, yeah, well, outside of Yuki, of course.
Yeah, so I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, for sure. But there's obviously that interview MSL did with Sam where he's just like, oh yeah, an AWP, what's that? Don't know how to use it, and it's like, oh cool, fuck, you're just saying it, like, and then,
man, he's always been like that.
And then hilariously, like the interview's released, and like 3 months later, KGB's gone. It's like, yeah, man. I laugh so hard.
You got to read underneath with MSL.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, what is he not saying here? I need an opper. That's what he's. Right. All right. There's finally one last question. We got to think about because obviously, actually, there's two. I forgot. G2. Is it time?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Is it time for the God Emperor, so to speak, to return existence?
Well, the thing is, like, we can sit here and talk about it, but the internal politics of, like, French CS rivals that of, like, a geopolitical summit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anything will happen.
All right.
All.
I'll put it this way. I actually think it has to be existence because there are no answers left. You've tried
XMS, baby.
Yay! XMS as a leader? I'm thinking of a leader here.
Nah, it's hard, dude. I don't know.
MBK has tried it, failed.
Yeah.
Happy,
failed.
They're not going back to him. He's basically gone even worse. Shocks can't do it. There's no other answer, is there?
Except to go to Valve and get them to redo the coaching role and then get existence as the coach. Which
that might be more bearable, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
Because Existence, hasn't he said he won't stop playing until he wins a major or some bullshit?
yeah, and you know what? He's played the LDLC, so I actually believe him.
Yeah. Yes, that's a tough one. I honestly, G2 is just one of those teams that I try not to think about and just like watch their games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just because, yeah, thinking about like potential with G2 is just going to lead to aneurysms.
Mm-hmm. But
As we've seen with Thorin and his slowly declining mental state over the years, as he tries to grapple with the complexity of the G2 roster, it's driving the man insane.
This is basic arithmetic. Why are you force buying?
What? Please, God.
Yeah. All right. And then the final question: will any of these rosters have what it takes to beat SK? Because this is the actual question of the roster shuffle. This is why the roster shuffle is happening. The question is, can we beat SK? And for a lot of these teams, the answer has been no. So they are switching.
Bolts with SK is just so overpowered, dude. Like, they are... Yeah, it's scarier to me than the Phelps peak SK. Just because you look at it and you see how Cold Zero and Fur function with bolts, and you see like the map pool widening and their place like cementing in terms of how they want to play the game, and you're like, dude, this isn't just like C9 run of form where it's just crazy. Like, this is like one of the greatest rosters like starting to fucking entrench themselves. You know what I mean?
And it's actually gonna get worse if Nick goes out and Dust 2 comes in.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that Luminosity Dust 2 was so good. Yeah, I can't see anyone beating SK except for like maybe FaZe in the odd series if they can like get Rain and Nico going off, or like some of that Olaf M Boston form. But like, yeah, I don't see, especially with like Astralis and North going to have to realign themselves, Navi struggling a lot, G2 not doing shit. Like, yeah, I don't really see.
G2 have had a good matchup, but they will never get to the place where SK is at to play them. It feels like, right?
Yeah, God, no. And it's like, even if they do and can match up well individually, I don't see how G2's style and their macro play can outdo like fucking SK's mid-round calling.
Oh, and also Verse Pro is dead. Verse Pro actually had a decent matchup against SK too, but they're gone now.
That goes without saying.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I forgot. What do you think about Verse Pro with Mishu, real quick? I actually don't know what to think about it because I haven't seen Mishu play that much, but.
No, I literally haven't seen a game of Virtus Pro in so long. They're just not even a team in my head.
Okay. Well,
straight
maybe one day they will resurrect, and maybe Snacks will one day be the player he was always meant to be until he became leader.
He's a great player to watch in form.
All right.
Really fun player to watch. Anyway.
All right. I guess this actually begs the one question is because the way you're describing this SK with bolts, there is actually a challenge that everybody implicitly wants to beat, and that is the challenge of taking the throne from Fnatic 2015 as the greatest of all time roster. Obviously, it's very early, but you think this SK is the one?
Yeah, I reckon. I watching the trend, like how quickly the transition from Phelps to Bolts happened, and how like neck craningly like hard. I was just like, what the fuck is going on? As like they just rose, you know what I mean? Like, they are one of the most impressive teams I've ever watched in terms of just like not like individually with their stars and Cold Zero and Fur. It'll take for this SK roster to not be like one of the most at the very least one of the most dominant teams of 2017. It will take like Fallen having a kid and retiring, or like Taco playing soccer and breaking his ankle and the ankle getting infected and him dying or something. Like, it'll take...
he literally has to die because apparently he plays with injuries all the time.
Yeah, and it's like Fur doesn't even hear. It's like, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Fur actually got over the hearing thing. He like like we're talking about external factors to stop this SK. So you think You think by the end of this SK's run, whatever it is, 2019, 2020, whatever,
Yeah.
they are going to usurp that throne as CSGO's greatest of all time lineup?
Well, obviously, it's like a super.
It's a super hard question, right?
Yeah, it's a super hard question.
And it's
to
very,
call.
very
But
early.
if you just look at the scene right now and where it's at, and like the next 4 months, and like any team of SK's level rising up, like even just by virtue of the space around them, I don't even see I see Faze definitely contesting them in big series, but then again, Faze is like another one of those lineups that's just this like crazy abomination of a team that's like induced with like the shit that Bane uses just to like make them this supercharged team that seems to just be like the only thing that can challenge SK. It's like this unnatural, unholy thing that like SK still managed to beat regularly, you know? So yeah, I can't see any team directly challenging SK for like the long term. And just because you can't really predict past that, you sort of have to say SK might be at least the greatest team of 2018, if not one of the best rosters of all time.
Okay, I will. That's a good sentiment. For my part, I'm actually gonna bet against them, just because of because we obviously don't know. So I'm betting on the unknown factors here, because I'm guessing Fur isn't gonna go fucking crazy as he did in 2017. Like, yeah, he actually did it for like almost a year, and that's actually ridiculous already. But he can't do this forever, man. You can't keep getting away with this. And you can't keep getting away with this. We don't know the rise and forms of the SK players, and that's actually one of the reasons why that old Fnatic lineup was so good, is that they were able to shift towards whoever the star player was at a tournament or in a stretch. You know, from JW to Olaf to Crims to Olaf to like Flesha at majors and stuff like this. So I'm gonna think the Swedes will keep it. And as a final point, if none of these rosters find a way to beat SK in the short term, we're talking like 6 months, they're going to switch again, and then they're going to keep doing it until they find a way to beat SK.
Well, see, that's obviously the hardest part about that, is like not being good in the moment, but being able to adjust fairly dramatically over time, and to like not only internally in terms of rising and falling of form, but also externally to different stylistic teams. You know what I mean? But anyway.
All right. That should be the end of it. Do you have any shout outs you want to give out?
Shout out to the country of Vietnam for a sick holiday and making me miss most of the major. And making me watch like 6 to 8 VODs a day since then. So shout out to one of the 3 countries in the world that still call themselves communist. Shout out to you for this podcast. And shout out to AZ for inspiring me each day to talk to girls, because if he can confidently stay on North, then goddamn am I confident enough to talk to women.
AZ gives hope to all of the bad CSGO players in the world.
Yeah.
See you later.